Rolling along here on Betting Around the Rim. Keith Irizarry here with you. Sports Grid Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 204, MSG Network streaming devices. Brandon Robinson, Scoop B, joins me now. My guy, one of my NBA insiders. Love having him on the show. Hey, so Scoop, there's a lot of things I want to get into with you, but I want to start with the Lakers, actually, and what you're seeing now that, LeBron looked pretty healthy last night. AD looked pretty healthy last night. And what they pose as a threat in the postseason. Like, how do you view them going into the NBA playoffs?
A rested team. I mean, you look at the NBA, the transition from last season to this season, there was the shortest turnaround window for an older team in the Lakers. You go in the bubble in October, you're starting the season in December. So I think they had to kind of catch their breath, if you will. Injuries were not their friend, and they added Andre Drummond to the fold. And, this is another team, in addition to that, where you lost Rondo, you lost Dwight Howard, you lost JaVale McGee, you lost your defensive identity, and their DNA was founded in that last season. The alley-oops, the defensive prowess of Rondo. Rondo's across the hall as a Clipper by way of the Atlanta Hawks via trade at the trade deadline. So they've had to figure out a lot of stuff. COVID protocol, LeBron's ankle, AD and his issue. So they're coming at the right time. I think they're the most dangerous seventh seed in the NBA's Western Conference. Unfortunately, they do have to go to the play-in tournament that starts on Tuesday. But I think they're clicking at the right time. They did play the Pacers, who are fighting for their own playoff place in the NBA's Eastern Conference. But the Lakers at large, I think, are in a good position.
So let's go into the assumption. And again, I mean, if Portland loses today and the Lakers win, which I don't know if the Portland Blazers are going to lose today anyway, but if that happens, there's a chance they get to 6. Anyway, let's go into the assumption that they are the 7th seed. And I know that Chris Paul is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's a legend of this generation. Mm-hmm. How scared should the Suns be of that 2-7 matchup? In the first round, they're going to have to draw the Lakers probably.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring that up after the Lakers' win on Thursday night. Anthony Davis said, "We're not scared of the Suns," and I'm paraphrasing what AD said, but the Suns have been playing good basketball all year, and it's not just Chris Paul and his genius. It's also Devin Booker. It's also DeAndre Ayton. It's also the supporting cast. James Jones, the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, is arguably one of candidates to become the NBA's executive of the year. Sean Marks of the Brooklyn Nets may have something to say about that, but truly, he was the architect of creating a winning culture this season. Monty Williams has been, phenomenal in his coaching scheme for Phoenix. But in answer to your question, it would be scary to see the Lakers and the Suns in round one. The Western Conference champion and the NBA champion going up against Chris Paul, an MVP candidate. So, yeah, I like that matchup, honestly, 2-7.
Scoop, I think it's like every couple of weeks we talk and I try to get your temperature on the Brooklyn Nets because I think they are the most fascinating team in the NBA, mostly because they haven't really played much together. We got a chance to see them play together yesterday, the Big Three, probably going to play together today, maybe some limited time. With all that being said, like your view on the Nets going into the postseason is what?
Second seed ain't bad. Just don't become a third. I think when you look at, the NBA's Eastern Conference, they've only played about 14, 15 games cohesively, meaning the Big Three of Brooklyn's James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving. But I like them last night against the Bulls. It was a reprieve, if you will. Kyrie got hurt. Their last matchup against the Bulls, Vucevic elbowed him and apologized. But I like the matchup. I think when you look at the Nets at large, if say the season were to end today, I think the Nets are a 2nd seed, the Celtics are a 7th seed. I like that matchup a lot better. I don't like Brooklyn against Miami because I think Miami has given them problems all year, just like the Washington Wizards have given Brooklyn problems for whatever reason all year. And, going into the playoffs, I don't want to bet against Russell Westbrook, the NBA's triple-double king, if you will. But, yeah, man, I like the Nets. I like their Big Three. I like the addition of Blake Griffin immensely, specifically because I think he is their version of Draymond Green.
You brought up Westbrook, and I was going to talk about him a little bit later, so let's just do that now, though. Again, Scoop B joining me, Keith Irizarry, betting around the rim on Sports Grid Radio, Sirius XM Channel 204, MSG Networks, and the streaming devices. How should we, as fans of the sport of basketball, kind of dissect and also digest what Westbrook has been able to do on the floor?
I penned a piece about Russell Westbrook at Bally Sports Network earlier this week, and he is the triple-double king, eclipsing Oscar Robertson's 181 triple-doubles in a career. I think when you look at Russell Westbrook, I think people think he's mean. In my piece, I discussed that dichotomy there. I spoke with his best friend, Demetrius Juice Deason, a comedian, about why people think Russell is how he is. And they say, you turn the camera on, they always put him at a point where he's scoffing or he's yelling. But you take a look around the NBA, he's one of the most respected players out there, from the retired vets to the ones that are still playing. And, one of the things that resonates mostly with his NBA brethren is he helps take them another octave, another level. And you're seeing that. Russell started out this season with a quad injury that he didn't talk about or complain about a lot. You dealt with COVID issues with the Wizards. You dealt with Bradley Beal trade rumors early in the season, and they found a way to make it to the play-in tournament. Their record is 0-0, just like seeds 7 through 10. And Houston, we may have a problem.
Scoop, I view Russell Westbrook, and I read that article. I thought you did an amazing job with it on Bally Sports. I view him as being unfortunate, and here's why. Roll with me on this one. Every generation has like the icon, right? We had, the Magic and Bird generation, and then like Isaiah Thomas almost got pushed to the side, kind of, right? In the long run. And then, Michael Jordan, we forget Dominique Wilkins was awesome during that generation. LeBron's here, Kevin Durant is here, Curry is here. Westbrook, I think, is like that next one. If Westbrook was in a different generation, we might be viewing him as one of the 20 greatest players that ever did it. It's unfortunate that he's got these other superstars that kind of took his limelight almost.
It kind of reminds me of a conversation that I had with Shaq on the Scoop B Radio podcast, which you can subscribe to on all streaming platforms. But we talked about it last year. He said, when you look at the 90s generation of basketball, he compares it to McDonald's. Shaq is the pitch man for everything. I don't think McDonald's gave him a check for this, but this is what I'll say. When you go to McDonald's, you have a myriad of things that you can order on the menu, whether it's the McChicken, the Big Mac, the filet of fish, the chicken nuggets, and more. And Shaq said, well, what's the top thing on the menu? I said, the Big Mac, right? Exactly. Michael Jordan was the Big Mac. But then you have the chicken selects. You have all these other different, I think McDonald's should cut me a check. But, essentially what Shaq was saying was, you have to look at, you have your variations of different things. In his era, you had him, you had Hakeem, you had Patrick Ewing, you had Dominique, as you mentioned. In today's NBA, it's the same thing. LeBron is the Big Mac. Maybe Russell Westbrook is the filet of fish, and maybe Bradley Beal is a large fry, but there's something on the menu for everybody. And I think when it comes down to Russell Westbrook, I think a lot of it has to go with validation. When you look at just what LeBron has done, he's this generation's Michael Jordan, but that doesn't take greatness away from people overseas who like Rui Hachimura. It's just the fact that LeBron is the king of the NBA at this point. Everybody has their era. So I like Russell Westbrook. I think he brings something to the game, and hopefully he can win a championship before it's all said and done. Jason Kidd got one on his way out, so hopefully, that happens for Russell.
Like Gary Payton got one on the way out too, right? So and shout out McDonald's. Yeah, Scoop B is everywhere. He's a good guy to sponsor. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this on television. I'm just throwing it out there. He's a good guy to sponsor. Scoop B again joining me, Keith Irizarry, betting around the rim. The game of the day, it's the Warriors, it's the Grizzlies, it's Ja versus Steph. There are other layers to this one too, but winner gets the 8 spot, loser moves down to the 9. I won't ask you from a gambling standpoint necessarily, but like, how are you handicapping this game? Like, how do you view which team wins and why?
It's interesting, Keith. When I look at last season in the bubble, the NBA was definitely preparing for this year, last year, as it related to the play-in tournament. You look at the Blazers, you look at the Memphis Grizzlies last season, and the Blazers took care of business. I remember growing up, and you were in trouble with your dad, and I remember my stepdad saying to me, "That's one time. Don't make it two if you mess up." And I feel like when I look at the Grizzlies in the same breath, I look at that same sentiment. It happened last year in the bubble. You lost to the Blazers, and the Blazers were the AFC. They ended up playing the Lakers in round one and lost. Now they're in a situation against the Warriors where they're the ninth seed. The Warriors have been grinding all year. They're the eighth seed. Don't make it two. Take care of business. You'll be all right. You're playing against a Warriors team that has been without Klay Thompson all season and are still being successful. The Grizzlies have Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., local product to New Jersey, Kyle Anderson from St. Anthony's High School in Jersey City. You got a team that's young and was really potent and was giving Portland a run for their money last year. I'd close it out if I were you. However, I can't go against the Golden State Warriors for this reason. Steph Curry's been playing star quality basketball, and I don't bet against him. I think he's one of the most unguardable players in the NBA at this point. In this NBA era, I add Kevin Durant to that list as well, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James. But yeah, man, in answer to your question about handicap, I think that the Warriors are in a position.
Yeah, I think the Warriors are in a good spot too. The FanDuel Sportsbook, Scoop, has the over-under on points for Steph Curry is 35.5 today. Like, they think dude is going to go off. That is, I came in thinking, it'll be like 31.5. I'll take the over. 35.5 is a lot of points. Hey, Scoop, you always have your ear to the grindstone as we head into the playoffs, and that'll start next week. What coaches are, I don't know, maybe should be worried going into the postseason and going into this offseason?
Terry Stotts of the Portland Trailblazers. I think that they're in a position where they got to put up or shut up. You look at their roster. The only other high caliber all-star that Portland has had besides Damian Lillard or next to Damian Lillard has been LaMarcus Aldridge. And you look over, he's played next to CJ McCollum, but as far as high impact, big man or someone that can do something great, Jason Kidd's name is ringing a lot like Sundays at 12 o'clock. If it's not the Blazers, I think Gary Payton said it best. You mentioned Gary Payton. He said on the Scoopy Radio podcast that Jason Kidd will become a head coach in the NBA next year. I'd like to see it.
Me too. And by the way, reminder, everybody, subscribe to Scoopy. Check out the podcast. He's got some of the best guests out there. Scoop, I know you got some big things coming up. We won't say it here on the air yet. Once everything is finalized and we can put it out there, I want to have you back on the show. We'll talk about that, and we'll break down the rest of the playoffs next time you're on with me, all right?
Thank you for having me, brother, as always.
There he is, the great Brandon Scoop B Robinson. Follow him on social media. Scoop B is the handle. Always some great stuff. All right, so when we get back, we go up against the clock. We have our fastest 2 minutes of sports talk radio and TV. It is Betting Around the Rim. I'm Keith Irizarry.